Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. This is News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India has always advocated for advancing peace, security and prosperity in an atmosphere free from terror and violence in an interview to Newsweek on Pakistan. The Asian Development Bank raises India's GDP growth forecast for the current fiscal to 7% for FY25. ADB sees India's economy as a major growth engine in the Asia and the Pacific region. US President Joe Biden promises ironclad support for Israel amid Iran attack fears. Germany's airline Lufthansa suspends flights to Tehran. Muslims in India and the world celebrate Eid ul-Fitr. The Indian President and Prime Minister extend greetings. PM Modi also wishes people of Bangladesh. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed Newsweek's written questions and followed up with a 90-minute conversation. The subjects covered ranged from the major economic advances made under Modi's leadership to India's relationship with China and Pakistan. Prime Minister Modi is the first Prime Minister to be on Newsweek's cover after the former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. On Pakistan, PM Modi said to Newsweek, India has always advocated for advancing peace, security and prosperity in our region in an atmosphere free from terror and violence. On China, Prime Minister Modi said, India as a democratic polity and global economic growth engine is a natural choice for those looking to diversify their supply chains. India is a perfect destination for those who want to set up trusted and resilient supply chains. On the India-China border dispute, the Prime Minister said, for India, the relationship with China is important and significant. It is my belief, I'm quoting the Prime Minister, that we need to urgently address the prolonged situation on our borders so that the abnormality in our bilateral interactions can be put behind us. Stable and peaceful relations between India and China are important for not just our two countries, but the entire region and the world. I hope and believe we will be able to restore and sustain peace and tranquility in our borders, unquote. The Asian Development Bank has revised India's gross domestic product growth forecast for FY25 to 7%. This is up from its earlier forecast of 6.7%. The bank cited robust public and private investments and a strong services sector for revising its growth estimate upwards. Now, the report that we are going to show you puts this forecast into context.
The Reserve Bank of India had last week said that the Indian economy will grow by 7% in the fiscal year 2025. The Asian Development Bank too has raised India's GDP growth forecast for the year 2025 to 7%, which will trend upwards to 7.2% in 2026. The Philippines-based development institution had earlier predicted India would grow by 6.7% in 2025. The ADB sees India's economy as a major growth engine in Asia and the Asia-Pacific region. Higher capital expenditure on infrastructure development, rise in private corporate investment, strong service sector performance, and improved consumer confidence are contributing to this growth. There would be improved goods export and an increase in manufacturing and agricultural output. The ADB forecast comes a day after India's stock market scaled new peaks with the Sensex crossing 75,000 for the first time. The banking sector remains robust and is seeing improved asset quality. This was recently also pointed out by the Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to mark 90 years of the Reserve Bank of India.
Collaborative effort of the Government of India and RBI, the asset quality management, prompt corrective action framework are all great functions well carried out by our true regulator of the banks, Reserve Bank of India.
The ADB, which tracks the Asia-Pacific economies, closely says that the region continues to show resilient growth amid robust domestic demand, improving semiconductor exports and recovering tourism. India's Monetary Policy Committee on April 5th had held interest rate constant at 6.5% for the 7th straight assessment.
Looking ahead, robust growth prospects provide the policy space to remain focused on inflation and ensure its descent to the target of 4%.
The Indian Central Bank says that the Indian economy would expand by 7% for the year 2025. This is what it had forecast earlier as well. Meanwhile, Fitch had cut its outlook on China's sovereign credit rating to negative, citing risks to public finances as the economy faces increasing uncertainty. The Chinese Foreign Ministry sought to calm investor fears.
What I want to tell you is that the fundamentals of China's long-term economic growth have not changed. China's determination and ability to safeguard its sovereign credit will not change.
The outlook downgraded followed a similar move by Moody's in December. Beijing has been trying to spur its slow post-COVID recovery with fiscal and monetary support. Bureau Report, TD India.
Well, let's now get you the latest on the world's largest democratic election in India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi campaigned in Rajasthan for the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. He said the BJP has accountability and also gives a guarantee, that's the Modi guarantee, for the forthcoming elections. The Prime Minister Modi took a jibe at the Congress party and said that Modi was born to work, not rest. And he spoke too of the close relationship that Rajasthan has with Kashmir, something he claimed that the Congress party had not respected. The Congress leader, Rahul Gandhi, was also in Rajasthan campaigning for the Congress party. And the election machinery will now begin the countdown for the third phase of polling, which will take place on May 7. Nominations for this third phase of the general elections will commence from Friday. Here's Mihir Makori's report.
With the upcoming general elections in India, the political landscape is hotting up. Campaigning is on at full swing as political parties leave no stone unturned to reach out to voters. In a bid to bolster support for the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, Prime Minister first held a rally on Thursday in the holy city of Rishikesh, situated in Uttarakhand. Later in the day, he travelled to Karoli in Rajasthan, where he addressed another gathering of supporters. During his speech, Prime Minister criticized the Congress party for denigrating the significance Kashmir holds in the hearts of the people of India.
कांग्रेस के नेता समझ लें राजस्थान का कश्मीर से क्या वास्ता है, ये जानना है तो राजस्थान के बलिदानी वीर शहीदों के घर जाकर के पूछो। उनके गांव की मिट्टी बताएगी कि राजस्थान का कश्मीर से क्या वास्ता है। कश्मीर की धरती पर मेरे राजस्थान के अनेक वीर संतानों ने बलिदान दिए हैं।
Thursday witnessed a flurry of activities as other notable figures of the BJP embarked on a hectic campaign schedule. BJP's national president JP Nadda unveiled the party's manifesto for the Sikkim Assembly elections in Gangtok. Following this, he went to Andaman Nicobar Islands and addressed a public meeting. In Madhya Pradesh, the heart of India, the Home Minister criticized the opposition for prioritizing the welfare of their family members over the people's interest while addressing a rally in Mandla.
मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में भारतीय जनता पार्टी की टीम बनी है और दूसरी ओर कांग्रेस के नेतृत्व में कांग्रेस के लोग हैं। मैं आज आपको पूछने आया हूं, ये जो घमंडिया गठबंधन है, इंडी अलायंस है, उनका एकमात्र मकसद है अपने परिवारजनों को आगे बढ़ाने का है।
The Home Minister also held a rally in Katni in the central Indian state. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh conducted public rallies in Mauganj and Satna, both located in Madhya Pradesh. Plus, Union Minister Smriti Irani, who is the BJP candidate from the Amethi constituency, conducted an election campaign on Thursday. In the northeast, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar unveiled the BJP manifesto for Mizoram, marking the beginning of the electoral campaign in the mountainous state. Former Congress spokesperson Rohan Gupta made headlines on Thursday by joining the Bharatiya Janata Party, adding to the list of Congress members defecting to the ruling party ahead of the high-octane 2024 Lok Sabha elections. In the opposition camp, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi visited Bikaner and Jodhpur in Rajasthan to rally support for their party's candidates. Uttar Pradesh's capital, Lucknow, saw Samajwadi Party Supremo Akhilesh Yadav launching an attack on the BJP, accusing the party of governing through falsehoods.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी झूठ का सहारा लेकर के काम कर रही है। इनकी हर बात झूठी है, झूठे वादे जनता से किए हैं। इससे ज़्यादा खतरनाक काम लोकतंत्र में और क्या हो सकता है?
In the eastern part of the country, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee addressed a public rally at Red Road in Kolkata. In the south, Congress leaders K.C. Venugopal and Ramesh Chennitala campaigned in Kerala's Alappuzha city. Thursday also saw the Election Commission of India announcing nominations for Phase 3 of the general elections to Lok Sabha 2024, which will begin from Friday. As the nation gears up for the elections, all eyes are on the unfolding political developments in the world's largest democracy. Mihir Makuri's report for DD India.
The US, Japan and the Philippines are holding that trilateral meeting on aligning interests in the Indo-Pacific, and of course the Japanese Prime Minister has addressed the US Congress. Tensions mount in the Middle East over fears of an imminent attack from Iran on Israel. Russia stages a major missile and drone strike on Ukrainian energy infrastructure.
The Northeast. Will local issues play high over national issues? What are the issues that matter in Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura and Manipur? On the Great Indian Election on Friday at 8:30 p.m. IST and 1500 hours GMT, only on DD India.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a...
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lin. And there was a trilateral summit between the United States, Japan and the Philippines scheduled in the United States. Of course, the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida was also addressing the US Congress. That happened a short while ago. And in his address, he praised the United States' foreign policy.
Policy was based on the premise that humanity does not want to live oppressed by an authoritarian state where you were tracked and surveilled and denied from expressing what is in your heart and on your mind. You believe that freedom is the oxygen of humanity.
Well, Benji Hire now, who's DD India correspondent in Washington, D.C., joins us with an update on the story. Benji, the Philippines and China have had several run-ins at sea recently. Can you give us an update on this Trilateral summit and whether, to what extent it hopes to counter the Chinese influence there?
A significant event in a couple of hours' time, the first meeting of its kind between the United States, Japan and the Philippines. As you say, in an effort to show solidarity in the face of that perceived Chinese aggression. It follows the meeting yesterday between Fumio Kishida and Joe Biden at the White House and his speech to Congress, which is currently ongoing, in which he is pressurizing US lawmakers to recognize the role that America needs to play in upholding freedom and liberty around the world. And it's through that lens that the US will be announcing a series of measures to help preserve peace and security and freedom in the South China Sea in the wake of what it sees as threats by China, investments in infrastructure in the Philippines, and also cooperation and coordination from a maritime perspective between the US, Japan and the Philippines, aimed at showing that the US and Japan, quote, according to a senior administration official here, stands shoulder to shoulder with Manila. Recent actions by China bringing both Japan and the Philippines closer to the United States, the security interests aligning. Even before this trilateral, before these series of announcements were to be unveiled, Japan has over the past year and a half been buying US Tomahawk missiles, the Philippines allowing the American military to use its bases on its islands. And just this past weekend, we saw Japan and the Philippines join with the United States and Australia, members of that Quad alliance, as part of military defense drills in the South China Sea.
Benji, also China has expressed interest in working more closely with North Korea. How has the Japanese Prime Minister been describing his concerns about this? And tell us more about that address that is currently ongoing in the US Congress.
Well, firstly, on the address, the first time that a Japanese Prime Minister has had this honour since the late Shinzo Abe spoke to lawmakers back in 2015, the former Prime Minister. Now, Fumio Kishida becoming the sixth world leader to address Congress during Joe Biden's presidency. Again, an opportunity to underscore the strong partnership now between Japan and the United States. And in past moments, also addressing one of the main threats that Japan sees to the world, North Korea. He said on that that history is at a turning point, that an inflection point, a term that, again, Joe Biden likes to use too, that will define the next stage of human history. And the international order, he says, that the US helped establish is facing new challenges. One of those challenges being the DPRK, the nuclear weapons program that it is investing in. In fact, it's exporting weapons to Russia in what Fumio Kishida calls, quote, an unprovoked war of aggression against Ukraine. And I think one of the main warnings from him being that, again, I quote him, Ukraine of today could be the Asia of tomorrow, a hint at the potential of a Chinese invasion into Taiwan. In other words, if the US doesn't pass extra foreign aid for Ukraine, if Ukraine is losing on the battlefield to Russia, that may give permission tacitly towards Beijing to launch an offensive against Taiwan, the self-governing island democracy that it sees as its own. Ultimately, the message from Fumio Kishida to US lawmakers is that, yes, the United States has a heavy burden to carry as the so-called world policeman, but leadership is indispensable, he says, at the global stage, and the US shouldn't be expected to do it alone. Japan, he says, is with the US side by side to ensure the survival of liberty.
We leave it there. Benji Hire from Washington, D.C. Thanks very much. Tensions have been mounting throughout the Middle East following warnings from the US officials that Iran could carry out an imminent attack on the US or Israeli assets in the region. Iran has blamed Israel for a recent attack on its consulate in Syria, which killed commanders from its elite Revolutionary Guard Corps. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visits an Israel airbase where he said that Israel is preparing for scenarios in locations other than Gaza.
Global calls for a ceasefire have been growing as the Israel-Hamas conflict has entered its 7th month. But there has been little sign of progress in the talks. On Thursday, United States President Joe Biden extended an ironclad commitment to Israel against any potential Iranian attack.
As I told Prime Minister Netanyahu, our commitment to Israel's security against these threats from Iran and its proxies is ironclad. Let me say it again, ironclad. We're going to do all we can to protect Israel's security.
Interestingly, Biden's comments come a day after the TV interview where he was disagreed with Israel's war strategy and said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is doing a mistake. Now Biden's comment can be seen as a U-turn from his previous stance. The development comes in the wake of reports suggesting rising concerns of Tehran conducting strikes in the coming few days in response to the blast Israel conducted at the Iranian consular building in Damascus. The United States believes that a major Iranian attack on Israel is imminent and could take place in the coming days. Iran has vowed revenge for the April 1 airstrike on its embassy compound in Damascus, which killed a top Iranian general and military officers. On Thursday, Israel Prime Minister visited an Air Force base in southern Israel, where he said Israel preparing for scenarios in other areas than Gaza.
We continue our unceasing efforts to return our hostages. But we are also preparing for scenarios of challenges in other arenas. We are preparing to meet the security needs of the State of Israel, both in defense and in attack.
On the other hand, Russia called for all countries in the Middle East to show restraint and prevent the region slipping into chaos. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that it's very important for everyone to maintain restraint.
We obviously call on all countries in the region to exercise restraint. You know that we condemn the airstrike on the Iranian embassy compound. It's the violation of all the principles of international law.
Meanwhile, the French military, in coordination with the Jordanian government, dropped 10 tons of aid over Gaza on Wednesday, as the devastated Palestinian enclave faces famine and widespread disease. Israel will open a new land crossing into the Gaza Strip to facilitate aid deliveries from overseas or neighboring Jordan to Palestinians. Hamas is demanding an end to the Israeli offensive, whereas Israel wants to secure the return of the hostages but vowed not end the war until Hamas is destroyed as a military force. Aman Kumar Himanshu's report for DD India.
Germany's Lufthansa Airlines suspended flights to Tehran because of the situation in West Asia, as the region is on alert for possible Iranian retaliation over a suspected Israeli airstrike on Iran's embassy in Syria. Lufthansa said that it suspended flights to and from Tehran from April 6 until probably April 11. There was no immediate word from other international airlines that fly to Tehran. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said that Israel must be punished for the Damascus strike that killed 7 Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps members. Russia staged a major missile and drone strike on Ukrainian energy infrastructure early on Thursday, damaging substations as well as power facilities in 5 regions and causing emergency power cuts for at least 200,000 people. The latest attack used 82 missiles and drones. Ukraine's air defenses took down 18 of the incoming missiles and 32 drones. Russian strikes also attacked 2 Ukraine underground gas storage facilities. The Ukrainian President Zelensky will visit Lithuania's capital Vilnius on Thursday, and Ukrainian stocks of air defenses and artillery have dwindled as assistance from the West has slowed down, and also a major U.S. aid package has been blocked by the Republicans in Congress. IAEA's Board of Governors will hold an emergency meeting in Vienna. This happening Thursday at the request of both Ukraine and Russia to discuss attacks on the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. The IAEA says the drone strikes that have struck the Russian-held facility in southern Ukraine on Sunday hit one reactor building, and it has not ascribed blame, but has demanded that such attacks should stop. But Russia says that Ukraine had again attacked the plant with drones for the third day. Kiev said that it had nothing to do with these attacks, and any incidents were staged by Moscow. Ukraine and Latvia on Thursday signed a 10-year agreement envisaging annual Latvian military support for Ukraine at 0.25% of GDP. Earlier in the day, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in the Lithuanian capital Vilnius to attend a conference and meet with the leaders of several other European countries. Leaders from a dozen states in Central Europe, including Poland, the Czech Republic and Romania, are due to attend the Three Seas Summit in Vilnius, with the war in Ukraine prominent on the agenda. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Russia test-launched its Angara A5 rocket from the Vostochny Cosmodrome on Thursday. Technical glitches had previously prompted officials to abort missions for 2 days in a row. The launch of the Angara is intended to showcase Russia's post-Soviet space ambitions and the growing significance of the Vostochny spaceport, located in the forests of the Amur region, which is in Russia's far east. 37 migrants were rescued by an Italian Coast Guard from a boat traveling on rough seas off the southeastern coast of Lampedusa Island. These migrants were later transferred safely to the Italian island. Balkan countries, including Serbia, Croatia and North Macedonia, are ploughing ahead for low-emission hydrogen in a rush to meet EU emissions targets. Croatia plans to install 70 megawatts of hydrogen-powered capacity by 2030, while North Macedonia and Croatia are looking for investors to turn coal-fired power plants into gas and hydrogen plants. The Brazilian embassy in Rome on Wednesday displayed Ayrton Senna's McLaren Formula One racing car ahead of the 30th anniversary of the legendary Formula One driver's death. The racer died in the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix in Italy after his car suddenly veered off the track and hit a wall. Now, still to come here on DD India News Hour, we'll be discussing why the Indian economy continues to outperform expectations. South Korea's Liberal Opposition Party wins a landslide majority in the parliamentary elections. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un says that his country should be more prepared for war than ever.
Regional parties call the shots in the Northeast. Will local issues play high over national issues? What are the issues that matter in Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura and Manipur? On the Great Indian Election on Friday at 8:30 p.m. IST and 1500 hours GMT, only on DD India.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says that India has always advocated for advancing peace, security and prosperity in an atmosphere free from terror and violence in an interview to Newsweek about Pakistan. The Asian Development Bank has raised India's GDP growth forecast in the current fiscal to 7%. This is for FY25. The ADB sees New Delhi's economy as a major growth engine in the Asia-Pacific region. And the US President Joe Biden promises ironclad support for Israel amid Iran attack fears. Germany's airline Lufthansa suspends flights to Tehran. And returning now to our top story about the ADB, the Asian Development Bank, revising upwards its growth forecast for FY25 for the Indian economy from 6.7% to 7%. We have with us Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Director General of RIS for Information System, an expert on geoeconomics. We're privileged to have him with us. Thank you very much, sir. Professor Chaturvedi, what's driving this bullish sentiment on India currently?
Mark, as we all have been expecting, the Reserve Bank of India predicted the growth to be at 7%. International agencies were quite slow in terms of seeing this momentum and realizing the fact that we would end up much higher than they were expecting earlier. You saw IMF revised it to some extent. Now it's the turn of the Asian Development Bank to come up and close to 7%. But as your question posed in terms of what are the factors that are actually contributing to this, I would say the factors are something that we all have been working on since 2014, and you realize in terms of several parameters where things have improved. And I would say the idea of having a very clear, strong demand, strong traction. The report of the Asian Development Bank realizes the traction that now is coming in the rural demand, and rural demand catching up much more faster than ever expected, and also the supportive policies which have contributed. So both the factors have contributed to a great extent in terms of how we are looking at this growth process, Mark.
Also, Professor Chaturvedi, how do you view the higher capital expenditure on infrastructure, the rise in private corporate investment, strong service sector performance, improved consumer confidence, that's what you mentioned, domestic demand. So, also, these are some of the reasons that ADB has mentioned, and they're looking also for the next year, 25, that, these are good indicators.
Yes, exactly, Mark. If you see the report, the Asian Development Outlook, April 2024, 5 factors they have listed, and you very well captured them. The first and foremost, of course, is public capital expenditure that has gone up, and states have also shown a huge traction. In fact, if you see the conditionalities that the central government came out with, nudging states to expand capital expenditure base in their respective budgets, now it is up by 17% compared to last year. As a result, you find that private sector has also scaled up. The ADB outlook talks about housing sector, where more and more private sector crowding in for their investment has happened. It has helped in a major way. And as a result, you find the central government moving towards fiscal consolidation, and that has helped private sector to borrow more and further accelerate the growth process. You also find that the domestic finance institutions are now primary buyers of government security. So you are seeing a sort of cyclical effect that brings in more positivity and more commitment on the front of monetary policy. Also, less restrictive policy has helped. A clear target of 4% inflation has helped in terms of bringing both the Reserve Bank of India and the Finance Ministry working far more closely. We should also not underestimate the prudence, that the fiscal prudence that has been exercised, and also nudging of the way the banking sector had to perform. RBI's efforts have also given rich dividends in terms of NPA management. In last 10 years, the NPAs have come down to their lowest level mark.
Right.
They stand at 3.2%. So you find a greater effort in terms of fiscal prudence, in terms of good governance that is needed in the fiscal sector. You find demand expanding not just in urban areas, but also in rural areas and capital expenditure. So all the good factors that are needed in terms of how we are going forward is clear. The ADB report also talks about 1.7% of GDP for the current account deficit, which again contributes in terms of how we are going forward with fiscal prudence. Last but not the least, Mark, which is also very important, is in terms of our trade. And the target of export to touch $2 trillion is absolutely fascinating, which they have appreciated.
Sure. Tell us a little bit more about that, because we did say that, domestic demand is a good indicator. You talked about that. Manufacturing growth, how do we look at that? And exports, we need to find new markets as well. I mean, we can't keep supplying only to our market, isn't it?
Actually, Mark, if you see the domestic policies, particularly, I would pick up example of iPhones. In last 3 years, PLI scheme has given rich dividends in terms of how our companies in India and those economists who were at some point not very much convinced with the idea of Make in India now would have to read back in terms of how the performance have come up in case of iPhones. 70% of all phones that are now produced in India are now being exported.
Yes.
And this now is somewhere close to $14 billion worth of phones which are being produced. And globally, if you see all the iPhones that are being sold, 14% of them are made in India. So this is one success story which has impressed everyone and is very clear in terms of how we are going. In fact, if you see CRISIL's prediction, India is likely to be closer to the upper middle income status with 4,500 per capita income. So you find manufacturing for the exports is all set and has put us in a sweet spot in terms of how trade expansion is going to go forward.
Right.
There are certain risk areas which ADB Outlook has also mentioned, Mark. It talks about the growing conflict between US and China and also that leading to supply chain disruption, which may in a way affect India's own...
If I can intervene, Dr. Chaturvedi, also, I mean, about the concerns that the common man sees is whether agricultural output can be hit by, weather concerns, supply chain disruptions. To what extent are we prepared for that?
If you see, the MAT department has already come out with the ADB Outlook, doesn't talk much about it, but just last week the report has been released and we are expecting a much better monsoon than predicted earlier in March. So I hope as we go closer, the prediction and our ability to assess monsoon this year would be better. But as the current report in April itself has indicated from IMD, we are very clear that a good monsoon awaits us and production would not have huge variation in the key crops that we are expecting, which are key component for our food security.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi. Thank you for enlightening us on why India's economy continues to outperform expectations. Now, South Korea's Liberal Opposition Party has won a landslide victory in the country's parliamentary elections, putting the President Yoon Suk-yeol in a challenging position for the 3 remaining years of his term. In recent weeks, President Yoon is under pressure to address a number of issues, including rising food prices, a rapidly aging population, and an ongoing doctor's strike. Let's look at this report.
South Korea's Liberal Opposition Party has won a landslide majority in the country's general election to retain control of parliament. The vote is widely seen as a midterm referendum on President Yoon Suk-yeol, who has 3 years left in office. According to the National Election Commission, the Democratic Party was projected to take 175 of the 300 seats in the new assembly. A splinter Liberal Party considered allied with the Democratic Party was expected to take 12 seats. Yoon's People Power Party was set to win 108 seats. Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung expressed gratitude to voters.
I express my sincere gratitude to the people for supporting Democratic Party so that we could exceed our goal of gaining majority. The election result is not a victory for the Democratic Party, but a great victory for our people. The Democratic Party will do our best to respect the precious meaning contained in each vote cast by the people.
Meanwhile, People Power Party leader Hang Dong-hoon said that he will take full responsibility for the election results and step down. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and other senior aides had also offered to resign. President Woon was facing growing criticism, including from some members of his own party, for sticking to a hardline stance on a number of hot-button issues. Yoon's critics have accused him of failing to resolve livelihood issues such as soaring prices, refusing to quickly fire some top officials implicated in scandals, and lacking efforts to communicate with opposition leaders for policy coordination. Meanwhile, the doctors, all medical interns and residents are also protesting against Yoon's push to increase the yearly medical school admission cap by 2/3. This also set back Yoon's domestic agenda and weaken his grip on the ruling party. South Korea's foreign policy is likely to stay on its current course because Yoon's foreign policy is not based on populism. Aman Kumar Himanshu's report for DD India.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on Thursday said that unstable geopolitical situations surrounding his country mean that it's time to be more prepared than ever for war. He inspected the country's main military university, and Kim gave field guidance on Wednesday at the Kim Jong-il University of Military and Politics, and he met with the university staff and students. North Korea has in fact stepped up weapons deployment development in recent years under Kim and has forged closer military and political ties with Russia, allegedly also aiding Moscow in its war with Ukraine in return for help with the strategic military projects that it has. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. The Tesla CEO Elon Musk says that he's looking forward to meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi in India. Eid al-Fitr is being celebrated with religious traditions and fervor across India and in many parts of the world.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a meeting to review preparedness for the ensuing heat wave season on Thursday. During this meeting, he was briefed about the temperature outlook for the period from April to June 2024, including the forecasts for the upcoming hot weather season. Preparedness in the health sector was reviewed in terms of essential medicines, intravenous fluids, ice packs, ORS, and drinking water. The Prime Minister stressed on the whole of government approach, and he said that all arms of the government at the central, state and district levels, as well as various ministries, need to work in synergy. Tesla CEO Elon Musk confirmed a visit to India after he said that he looked forward to meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the country in a post on his social media platform X. And Musk has, however, not revealed the details of the visit and when he will visit India. It's likely to happen. The SpaceX founder is also likely to announce the company's investment plans in India. The announcement of the billionaire's visit comes less than a month after India had announced a new electric vehicle policy which would cut taxes by as much as 85% on the import of a certain number of EVs. It's been 5 years since WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was forcibly expelled from Ecuador's embassy in London and into the hands of the waiting British police officers. Since then, he has been fighting extradition to the US from an English prison on multiple charges of espionage. But his time in the UK could be close to an end. Here's Stuart Smith with a report.
After a series of appeal hearings, next week is the deadline for the US Justice Department to assure the High Court in London that Julian Assange will be treated fairly if deported to the US. If it doesn't provide those assurances, he'll be granted an appeal in Britain in May. Assange has been wanted by American authorities since 2019 for allegedly repeatedly violating the US Espionage Act, and he's been held at a British maximum security prison since then. His website, WikiLeaks, hosted tens of thousands of classified documents related to America's military and diplomatic activities worldwide. His supporters say the charges are politically motivated, and his conviction would represent an assault on freedom of speech and freedom of the press. The International Federation of Journalists, as well as press giants in the US, UK, France, Germany and Spain, have called for his release. But the US Justice Department says the publishing of some of those documents endangered the lives of informants. They claim he should not be treated as an ordinary journalist and that WikiLeaks was not an ordinary publisher. At court earlier in the year, they claimed Assange sought to solicit, steal, and indiscriminately publish US government documents, and he should be punished. England's High Court judges found the 52-year-old Australian can be extradited to the US to face justice there, but only if the US government can prove he will be treated fairly. It has until next week to provide those assurances, or he will be entitled to appeal this extradition. The US government must convince the court that he is afforded the same First Amendment protections as a United States citizen, which protects freedom of speech, and that the death penalty will not be imposed. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
Well, campaigners are demanding higher taxes on the ultra-wealthy, saying that it could raise up to $286 billion for the EU's most vulnerable. The protests say that these protesters, they say that they will land a private jet in front of the European Parliament on Thursday, but that claim could just be a marketing gimmick. Ishan Garg reports from Brussels.
Campaigners will gather outside the European Parliament building in Brussels demanding a 2 to 5% progressive tax on the ultra-rich. They say it could pay for up to 40% of the EU's post-pandemic recovery fund. Global NGO Oxfam says the EU's 5 richest billionaires have boosted their wealth by 76% since 2020. They claim 99% of the European population has become relatively poorer in the same time period. A study commissioned by the EU's executive arm has found that a progressive wealth tax on the bloc's richest 0.5% could generate more than $200 billion every year. NGOs including Oxfam, Avaz and We Move Europe are organizing Thursday's protest. They claim they will land a jet in Luxembourg Square in the heart of the Belgian capital in the middle of the narrow cobbled streets leading up to the European Parliament building. Now, this stunt, which is unlikely to happen in practice, is supposed to be a commentary on how the ultra-wealthy are hurting the environment by flying in private planes. The campaigners are hoping to raise awareness about climate change and will lobby European lawmakers to bring in laws to tax big individual polluters. Organizers say the ultra-wealthy and their companies paying far too little tax is at the core of many of Europe's problems. During this protest, they will demand more measures to address billionaires allegedly using shell companies to evade taxes. They say urgent action by authorities is required to reduce the wealth gap between the bloc's richest and poorest. Ishan Garg in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get you the sports news now. And the American football star and actor O.J. Simpson, who was acquitted in a sensational 1995 trial of murdering his former wife, has died at the age of 76 on Wednesday. Simpson was found responsible for his former wife's death in a civil lawsuit and was later imprisoned for armed robbery and kidnapping, but he was cleared by a Los Angeles jury in what the U.S. media called the trial of the century. Simpson died after a battle with cancer, his family posted on social media on Thursday. Simpson avoided prison when he was found not guilty in the 1994 stabbing deaths of his former wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ronald Goldman in Los Angeles, and later served 9 years in a Nevada prison after being convicted in 2008 on 12 counts of armed robbery and kidnapping two sports memorabilia dealers at gunpoint in a Los Angeles hotel. Simpson was one of the best and most popular athletes in the late 1960s and 1970s. The star javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra praised World Athletics' decision to award $50,000 to all gold medalists in the Paris Olympic Games. Speaking during an online interaction, Chopra emphasized the importance of financial support for athletics and athletes, highlighting the role that it plays in sustaining their careers and ensuring their families' well-being.
स्पोर्ट की तो एथलेटिक्स में मनी वाइज उतना ज़्यादा नहीं है जितना मतलब बाकी अदर स्पोर्ट में, आप टेनिस में, फुटबॉल में या क्रिकेट में, बाकी स्पोर्ट में देखोगे शायद से एथलेटिक्स में उसके हिसाब से उतना नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी बहुत अच्छा लगता है कि हाँ यार कुछ मिल रहा है, क्योंकि पूरा साल मेहनत करते हैं, कुछ तो होना चाहिए। सभी इन द एंड सभी वही सोचते हैं कि यार हम मेहनत कर रहे हैं, हम हमारी फैमिली को खुश रख सकें और जो भी है लाइफ अच्छी चले, कुछ हमको अच्छा लगता है हम खरीद सकें, अच्छे से रह सकें, अच्छा पहन सके, कुछ एक आधे शौक पूरे कर सके, तो वही है थोड़ा बहुत वो चीज़ हो जाती है और काफ़ी हेल्प मिलती है। और उसके बाद थोड़ी एक फैमिली की जो स्टेबल होने की टेंशन है वो कम हो जाती है, क्योंकि हाँ वही है पैसा भी ज़रूरी होता है लाइफ में आगे जीने के लिए।
Well, Muslims around the world are celebrating Eid al-Fitr, which is one of the biggest occasions in the Islamic calendar. Eid al-Fitr, which means the festival of the breaking of the fast. It's celebrated at the end of the Ramadan, which is a month of fasting for many Muslims. It's a time for spiritual reflection and a time to show kindness to one and all. DD India's Kirat Chawla reports.
The sighting of the crescent moon marks the end of holy month of Ramadan, a joyous occasion filled with prayers, feasting and festivities. In India, people were seen offering mass prayers at mosques and exchanging greetings on the auspicious occasion from the north to the south. Leaders across India extended their wishes and greetings to the citizens of the country. President of India, Draupadi Murmu, extended a heartfelt greetings to the countrymen on the auspicious occasion of Eid al-Fitr and said that this festival spreads the spirit of unity, harmony and brotherhood. Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar greeted the nation on the auspicious occasion, saying heartiest greetings on the auspicious occasion of Eid al-Fitr. Symbolizing the spirit of gratitude and togetherness, this festival reminds us of the values of compassion, generosity and brotherhood that resonate with the ethos of our diverse nation. May this Eid bring joy, fulfillment and abundant blessings to the lives of all. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also extended Eid greetings to the people. In a post, he said, and I quote, "Best wishes on Eid al-Fitr. May this occasion further spread the spirit of compassion, togetherness and peace. May everyone be happy and healthy. Eid Mubarak." From bustling street festivals to vibrant cultural performances, the spirit of Eid al-Fitr is palpable in cities and towns worldwide as communities come together to celebrate their heritage. In Bangladesh, traditional congregation was held at the National Idikgah Maidan and other places in Dhaka. In a letter to Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Indian Prime Minister extended on behalf of the people and the Government of India warm greetings to the people. In Nepal, Muslims across the country are celebrating Eid al-Fitr with zest and zeal. The Islamic community offered special namaz in mosque in Kathmandu Valley and received blessings from their elders and giving blessings to young ones. The crescent of the new moon signifies the beginning and end of fasting during Ramadan. It is during this month that Muslims believe the first verses of the Quran, Islam's holy book, was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. During this period, Muslims fast and give to charity to show kindness and patience and strengthen their relationship with God. With Bureau Inputs, Kirit Chawla's report for DD India.
Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, which is formerly Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar and Eid Mubarak.